Hey, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, thank you for spending some time with me today. So I'm wondering if you could find some of those solutions that you've previously thought were invisible, how different would your business be? Like, how many problems could you solve? Well, today we're going to talk to Stephen Shapiro. Stephen is the author of the new fantastic book, Invisible Solutions, not yet available for purchase, but going to be coming out soon. I've got actually the first print copy, if you can believe that. I left it at home because I cherish it so much. Steve is fantastic. For over 20 years, Steve Shapiro has presented his provocative strategies on innovation, culture, and collaboration to audiences in 50 countries. And I've seen him 3 or 4 times myself. During his 15-year career with the consulting firm Accenture, he created and led, get this, a 20,000 person innovation practice. My goodness. He's the author of 6 books, including Best Practices Are Stupid, which was named the best innovation book of the year. It's a great book. I love that book. And Invisible Solutions is better yet. His clients include Marriott, 3M, P&G, Microsoft, Nike, NASA, and GE, to name a few. And in 2015, he was inducted into, get this, the Speaker Hall of Fame. Recently, he's been a judge and mentor on the TLC TV show Girl Starter. And today, he's going to talk to us about Invisible Solutions. And he's coming to us from Orlando, Florida. What's up, Steve Shapiro? How you doing, brother?
Hey there, Phil. Good to see you.
Great to see you. Yeah, for sure. So, Steve, we go all the way back when you wrote your first book, or no, well, your first hardcover book. Second book, Goal-Free Living, right?
Yeah.
So, wow, man, lots has changed. Back then, I was talking about how to set goals, and you were talking about how to live without them, right?
Exactly. And now neither of us talk about either of those or
whatever. No, right? That's the fun part. So now you're talking about invisible solutions, which I really enjoy. And this is so smart, right? Ways to reframe and solve those difficult problems. So, Steve, where did you come up with the idea for invisible solutions?
Actually, this is something which I've been working on for about the past 9 years. So when Best Practices Are Stupid came out in 2011, I talked a lot about the importance of asking the right questions when it comes to finding solutions. And people would, even though they enjoyed the concepts, they needed tools. And so I started building tools to help people actually reframe their problems. And it took me 9 years to work on it and perfect it and turn it into a book and a whole bunch of other tools. So it took me a long time, and I've been working on this for close to a decade now.
Wow. So that's interesting. So, Steve, back us up, though, because innovation, you have to have some foundation. So, Steve, where do you get the foundation for your innovation? Like, were you an engineer? Because I know you haven't always been a speaker. So let's back that up before predate Steve speaking. Where did you get this?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you go back to my earliest days, when I was in high school, I was an uber nerd. I was in the math club. I was in the marching band. I mean, I was about as uncool as you could get. And I became an engineer in college. And so I am a proud left brain nerd. And as I got involved in the world of innovation back in 1996, I discovered that most people viewed innovation as a right-brained creative endeavor that was for the privileged few. And what I discovered is that it's actually a left-brain analytical process that anyone can do, and it's particularly valuable and useful for people who are engineers and accountants and lawyers and people who anybody who's an analytical type of person. It's really a great process.
Wow. So innovation is a process. It's not just a eureka moment. It's not just, hey, here's a smart idea. That's not innovation. Steve, what's innovation?
Well, I think there's a difference between innovation and creativity. And I think that's really the key is people think of innovation and creativity as being the same thing, but they're not. Creativity is sort of that spark. But the problem is if you focus on ideas, if everything is around the ideas that your employees develop, your customers submit, your business partners suggest, you end up with lots and lots of ideas. The typical suggestion box has 1,000 ideas submitted for every one that gets implemented. That's pretty ridiculously low. And so what ends up happening is we're wasting all this time thinking about problems and developing ideas and generating, ideas and suggestion boxes and not doing anything with it. And so it's just not very efficient. And that's why I love the concept of not focusing on ideas, but rather focusing on what's the right problem, what's the right opportunity, and how do we reframe it to make sure we're not actually solving the wrong problem. And that's the process I like to focus on.
Okay. So let's say that we've got a problem with not enough revenue, right?
Yes.
Many organizations have this. So is that the right problem, or how do we reframe that in the right way?
Yeah, I mean, is it the right problem? There is no right or wrong problem. It's really what's going to serve you best. So one of the lenses in the book, and the book is based on 25 different ways to reframe a problem. Think of it as like a mental kaleidoscope. You take a problem and you twist it around. So if the original problem was how can we generate more revenue? Well, you could use the word substitution lens, which basically says, well, how do we change just specific words in the problem statement? So maybe it's not revenue, maybe it's customers, maybe it's more revenue, maybe it's more customers, maybe it's fewer, more profitable customers. Each of these generate different lenses that we then go focus on. Because if I'm going to focus on fewer, more profitable customers, I then might want to work with the leverage lens, which says, well, what's the one factor that has the greatest impact? And it walks you through the whole process of identifying what's the right segment, right? The customers that we need to focus on, they're going to have the greatest impact.
Wow. That sounds a lot better than, hey, Steve, I think we should have tuna fish for lunch because that's going to make us better, right?
I do like tuna fish, though.
Yeah, I know. Good tuna fish, hard to come by here in Tampa. So yeah, but so all right, so we reframe it. Then as we reframe, you mentioned the kaleidoscope, right? We look at this in different ways. But Steve, I've never seen a book like this. I've never seen a book that actually kind of helps us through this framework. So why has there not been one before now? I mean, is it just that we look at innovation wrong, or what do you think?
I don't think it's wrong. I mean, people look, every perspective helps you see something differently. So I don't think it's a question of that mine is right and others were wrong. Mine is just a different spin. Being an engineer, I wanted to take a different approach. I wanted to create a process, something that's repeatable and predictable. And I think that to me was really my goal in going into creating the book. But I also used one of the lenses in the book and realized that maybe I'm not creating a book. Maybe I'm creating a product. So if I'm creating a product, well, what goes with the book? So we've created a whole bunch of tools that help you navigate the lenses to identify which are going to be the best ones to help you solve your problems. So again, it's not a right or wrong. It's a different spin on things. And being an engineer and having done this as long as I have, I wanted to give people tools that allow them to actually do it themselves. So when people ask me, what's the problem I solve? The problem I solve is I help people solve their own problems.
Wow, that's interesting, because many consultants, and I know I don't think you'd call yourself a consultant so much as an innovation geek, right? So, but I mean in a good way. I think many consultants the belief is that they try to create more problems so that they can stick around longer. And I don't know that I don't think that's what you're trying to do here, right? You're trying to help people, as you said, solve their own problems by looking at things differently. So, but why would someone hire a consultant then when they could solve their own problems?
I think it really depends on how much energy they want to invest. So I think about, this is going to get a little geeky, but I love geeking out on things, is I think about, the way that we can serve clients. If we're in the consulting business, or if we're in the services business, there's 3 different ways we can help people. We can tell them what to do. So that's what a book does. A book tells you what to do. Then you could, at the highest level, you could do it for them, which is what consultants do. And I like the middle part, which is what I call enable me. Enable me to do it. It's actually creating tools that help speed up the whole process for me. So I don't have to be told what to do. The tool actually helps me do it. And that's really where I'm trying to focus a lot of my energies here. All those levels have value because there are going to be different price points. There's going to be different level. If you hire look, I worked for Accenture for 15 years. I loved Accenture. They are brilliant. They're the best at what they do, but there's a price to be paid for that. And my goal is to make myself affordable to anyone by creating tools that any company of any size can use to help them solve their problems, because it's not just the Fortune 100 that have big problems. The mom and pop stores have big problems. They're big to them, so they're big problems.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So you created more than a book. You've got a series of tools that you have there. So what's another tool, Steve, that you have besides the book? I know there's a tear out in the book, right? A pull out in the book. So I'm sure that's one of them. But what else did you make?
Sure. And that's one of the things which I really like about the book is we spent a lot of energy on the design of it to make it easy to consume. There is that centerfold that tears out and you can put it up on your wall and it summarizes, but that's not really the tool. That's more of a summary. We have what we call the lens browser. The lens browser is basically an online tool, a mobile-friendly tool that allows you to look at all the lenses and quickly target which lenses are going to have the greatest impact for a particular problem you're working on. And it has text, it has videos, it has audio, it has and a whole bunch of other different information in there to help you zero in on what's going to create the greatest value. So that's one of the big tools that we're investing a lot of energy in. We're also building other types of tools. We're playing around with chat bots and potentially even light forms of artificial intelligence and machine learning to help people be able to, again, navigate the process as quickly as quickly as possible. So it really is just we're going to keep on playing around with this, and as people ask for more problem-solving tools, we're going to create them.
Wow. Well, I remember one of my favorite tools that you ever created was the personality poker tool. The ability to, within a few moves, maybe within half an hour or 45 minutes, able to figure out your personality. So how is is this an evolution of that or similar? I mean, how did you come up with that? And then how did you come up with this?
Sure. Well, and I love that you bring up personality poker, because that is coming back to my tell me, enable me, do it for me model. Personality poker is smack dab in the middle of the enable me. Now, it's not digital. It's not technology. It really is literally a deck of poker cards that can, in a matter of minutes, tell you everything about how you contribute to success of an organization, how you detract from it. And it's just really cool. It's a lot of fun. And that I developed because I just knew I needed some kind of tool to help people create high-performing teams. When I started working on Invisible Solutions, originally I was going to create a deck of cards with all the different lenses, but I realized that the process of being able to go through the lenses and zero in on what's going to be most valuable required a little more technology. And so we started with technology, and then we'll probably create a deck of cards on the back end of it that support the technology. So I'm a big believer in something called phygital. And phygital is when the physical world blends with the digital world. We tend to build a lot of digital solutions, or we build a lot of physical solutions. And when those two come together, to me, that's when it becomes most exciting, is technology in the physical world, or phygital.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense to me. And I like that. And I find that interesting that you'd go digital first, back to a deck of cards, then probably back digital. I mean, there's a lot there. And that's interesting that you do that. And I totally agree. I mean, personality poker is right in the middle for $20. I get $25. You copy the book, you get the cards, and you can totally make that work. Or, in a bigger organization, buy 10 decks of cards, 10 books. Right. And that's really simple. So Steve, these videos, right? So how long are the video tools going to be for Invisible Solutions? Are you talking like hour-long videos, 1-minute videos? What combination of two? What?
There's going to be a series of different videos. So the 25 lenses each will have a 30-second video, which introduces what that lens is. So somebody can very quickly get a sense of what it is and how to use it. Then there'll be a longer video, which will be 2 to 3 minutes. But then what we're creating, and this is what I'm really excited about, are instead of videos specifically for each lens, we're going to be building videos around specific scenarios. So for example, let's say you are in B2B sales and you wanted to be able to increase your sales. We'll create a video about which lenses will be best in the scenario of increasing sales. If you are running a marketing department, what would be the best lenses? And I will actually walk through examples of how to apply those lenses. So we're creating a whole repository of videos that are going to allow people to look at individual lenses or look at across all the lenses to see how they might come together into better solutions.
Wow. That's awesome, man. I can't wait to see them. That is fantastic and going to help a lot of people in a lot of different industries. And that's so interesting, because if we break it down, right, the goal is to solve as many problems as we can. I mean, in sales, marketing, innovation, whatever we're in, I mean, we have to solve problems. And yet we've not had a lot of tools like this. So Steve, is there are there any archetypes or anything like that? Or are these all focused on problem solving, to find problem solvers?
I mean, everything's organized and categorized. And to be clear, even though there's 25 lenses in the book, over time, I've cataloged a much larger number than that. And we will release more lenses over time. But these were the 25 that I found most valuable, and they fall into 5 different categories. So for example, there are 5 different lenses in the book that are designed to help you take a big, broad, abstract problem, like how do I increase revenues or how do I improve productivity, and to break it down into something smaller. Because if you try to solve big abstract problems, you get a lot of abstract and irrelevant solutions. So there's 5 different lenses around that. Conversely, there are lenses that help you take something that's too specific and make it less so. So we got 5 lenses per 5 different categories, leading to the 25 different lenses. So we just want people to be able to access it as quickly as possible, navigate it as quickly as possible, and zoom in on the 5 or 6 lenses that are going to have the greatest impact.
Wow. So give us an example, Steve. What's I know you can't pick a favorite lens, but let's pick like lens 13 or something. Pick us a lens.
So I love all my lenses equally, but I would say a couple of the lenses that I find to be very powerful. One is the resequence lens. I happen to like the resequence lens a lot. And this one's fresh in my mind because I was talking with a client just the other day with a problem they said was nearly impossible to solve. And we applied the resequence lens and came up with solutions that had never been considered. And that to me is always very interesting. And the resequence lens basically says, what is the timing? Because a lot of times we assume that in a problem we're trying to solve, there's some kind of fixed sequence of events that need to take place. This has to happen before the next step takes place, before the next step. But the reality is there's 3 different strategies you can use. You can predict, you can postpone, and you can do something in parallel. So predicting basically says, I'm going to do some forecasting and I'm going to determine what is it that we think will happen, and we will build to forecast. And we need to do that if it's a quick turnaround, if it's a long lead time in order to create something. So we'll create inventory predicting what people will want. On the flip side, we could postpone. Like if you go into a hardware store and you want paint, you don't just typically pick up a gallon of paint off the shelf that's the color you want. You say, I want this color, fuchsia, number 72 or whatever it happens to be, and they will mix it for you. That is a postponing. They're postponing the decision of what colors to produce until after they know exactly what someone wants. And parallel just means doing them at the same time. Instead of always assuming there's a sequence, maybe there isn't. And I love this one because it allows you to take a lot of problems that we assume are very linear and has you change and challenge some of your perspectives on it.
Wow. I didn't even know that there's 3 different things we could do there. And then you made it really clear of how we could do that. Man, that's really good. So we got Peter Winnick here. Says, awesome job, guys. So it's good to have a fan. So big fan of Pete. So that's good. So yeah, so awesome, Steve. So as you're, how are you going to construct a talk? Are you going to do this like you did for Invisible Solutions, where you sent out the book and they pick the 7 that they like? Or how are you going to do this? Because, you're one of the most engaging, interesting keynote speakers out there that has always a customized talk to, even though it's often the same framework. So how does that work, Steve?
Yeah. So, like you said, the framework is the same. There's the way you solve problems, but the examples that I use and the lenses that I choose to highlight will differ from event to event. So before I talk with the client, I will just have a conversation with them to understand what are the problems that you have as an industry and what are the problems that you have as a company. And we'll then just talk about, okay, well, how about this example? What about this lens? And then the key with all of this, though, is, I don't want people to leave a speech feeling good. I want them to feel good. I want them to feel entertained. But at the same time, I want them to have the tools to leave. So what everybody gets when we're done is the cheat sheet, which is a summary of the lenses and some information on how to apply that, so that when they leave the event, they have the tools that they can take with them and use every day to help them reframe and solve their problems.
Awesome. Specific examples. Context matters, right? When we're solving problems, you have to have context. Just because you can mix a fresh color of paint doesn't mean you can necessarily solve the problem of increased revenue. Just because you give us the answer doesn't mean we can find it ourselves. So I think that's pretty instructive, man. That's really, really helpful. Yeah,
and one other thing which I find useful is, in the world of innovation, I am a big believer that sometimes expertise is the enemy of innovation. So when you know a topic well, when you have spent your entire life understanding your industry, understanding your customers, it doesn't mean you know your industry. It means you knew your industry. So the world is changing. And so a lot of times, if I'm speaking for a retail organization, I will not use retail examples intentionally, because I want to stretch their thinking. I want them to see how they can learn from a completely different industry and develop solutions by thinking beyond the boundaries of their industry.
Do you have an example of that, Steve? That sounds really interesting. Can you give me an example of like a retail one, how you might bring in something totally different, that then how you tie that and make that relevant?
Sure. I mean, retail is an interesting one. I'll give you my favorite story. This is one of my. I just think this one is so brilliant. There's a group that gets together on a regular basis called Pumps and Pipes. And what Pumps and Pipes is, it's a group of cardiologists who get together on a regular basis with people from the oil and gas industry. And what I love about this organization is what they're doing is they're talking about what do we know about the cardiovascular system and how can it apply the transmission of gas and oil and vice versa. And these aren't two randomly put together groups. They are purposefully put together. They both talk about the movement of a fluid through a tube. And so there's some brilliant types of solutions that have been developed by these types of collaborations. So one of my favorites is actually, and it just shows you how you can never know where a life-saving solution can come from. A cardiologist was talking with an oil pipeline engineer, and he said, hey, one of the problems we have as human beings is we get clots. And if you have a clot in your body and the clot goes up to your brain or somewhere else, it can kill you or cause a stroke. How do you deal with something like this in the oil industry? And the oil engineer said, well, we don't have clots. We call it sludge. And sludge is basically when things start to clog up inside of an oil pipeline. And he said, I developed a filter that goes inside of oil pipelines that will break up the sludge and dissipate it. And the two of them collaborated and created a medical device that goes inside of the vena cava of the in your bloodstream, and it will break up the clots that move through it. So a solution to a cardiologist's healthcare problem was solved by an oil engineer. These are the types of collaborations that I find totally fascinating.
Wow, that's super fascinating. Holy cow. I would never have considered that, but once you break it down like that, it totally makes sense. I mean, moving fluid through a tube, moving fluid through a vein. Okay, that makes sense. So, wow, that's pretty cool, man. So Steve, Invisible Solutions coming out real soon. So what, people get the book. The book's about $25. So what do they get with the book? Are you putting any in the pullout? Is there any bonuses or anything like that people are getting for getting a copy of it?
Yeah, so you get the pullout, which to me is pretty cool. But there's also a number of resources that you can get in terms of templates and tools and other information. There'll be some videos that you can get. We've been, just slowly launching new video assets that, people can get. So if people are interested in one of my favorite stories, they can go to baggageclaimstory.com. And on baggageclaimstory.com, I tell just a 6-minute story, but it shows you the power of reframing a problem as a means of finding better solutions. And so that's something which I would encourage people to take a look at because it's sort of funny, but it's quite powerful also.
Wow, that's really great, man. That is going to help a ton of people. So, Steve, if they want to get the book, is the book going to be on Amazon, or do you have a website that they should be going to in order to pick up a copy of that?
Sure. I mean, it'll be on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You'll find it pretty much anywhere. But if you want to just learn more about it, it's invisiblesolutionsbook.com is the place to go to learn more about it. Links to pre-order it are there. And there's, other information. So that's probably the easiest way to learn more about it.
Cool. Invisiblesolutionsbook.com be the place. And Steve, if people want to connect with you, if they've got questions, they want to work with you, where would you send them? How would they get in touch with you?
I mean, the easiest way is to just visit the website, which is stephenshapiro.com. That's Stephen with a PH. And if you don't know how to spell Stephen, you can just go steveshapiro.com. It'll take you to the same place. That's the easiest way. And then you can just, write me from there. I love to hear from people. And this is one of the things which I would encourage people as you go through. If you get the book and you read the book, you will come up with your own examples. And you might even come up with new lenses that you hadn't considered previously. I would encourage you to write me. Just drop me a line and say, hey, here's a new lens, or here's a new example, something which I got, from my own experience that I think would be interesting. And we're going to create a repository of these stories that people share.
Wow. That's fantastic. So invisiblesolutionsbook.com or stephenshapiro.com or just steveshapiro.com will take you to Steve Shapiro. So Steve, it's a pleasure to talk to you today, as it always is, my friend. Thanks for making time, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Good time, Steve. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Phil. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much for listening in. Hopefully you got some great stuff. You found some ideas to help you solve better problems and another tool in your toolbox, InvisibleSolutionsBook.com by Stephen Shapiro. Have a great day. If you have questions, drop me a note. See you later.